There's a lot of detective work here, it seems, on piecing together his reported traces of social media and trying to come up with a motive for the crime that he's accused of committing. But I want to read a part of your book. You write this, quote, "But in the end, pinning down Luigi's motive misses the point. Luigi's elusiveness is what really matters." What do you mean by that? Dive in a little deeper of what you mean by the elusiveness is what really matters.
Well, I mean, I think there's a distinction between his the people who are actually materially involved in the case and the case as a social phenomenon. And for people, for family members, for victims, it matters specifically. But but in a larger sense, his elusiveness is important because it's what lets the public from all sides and areas of the world sort of clue into him. He's not claimed by a party or a political approach. And that is who he is in a way, it seems, because he's always trying to, as people say these days, rise above the binary. He's always trying to see the big picture, not this one side or the other. Um, uh, and that's what makes him so. I mean, part of what makes him so potent as a public phenomenon.
I want to
Uh,
talk about that public phenomenon a bit here because, I mean, he received national attention almost pretty much immediately when he was named a suspect. And we saw, I mean, the crime was Brian Thompson was walking almost during rush hour, a little before rush hour, on the streets of Manhattan. He was just a few blocks away from the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree during the Christmas season, and he was gunned down. But the reaction wasn't people mourning the loss of a father, mourning this terrible crime. There was a lot of online and even more so in person cheering and celebrating the death. And people were gleeful. People were lionizing Luigi Mangione. People were saying he was a vigilante, even to people saying, you know, I don't condone murder, but. And that was where people were going. And this wasn't even just on the fringes of the dark web. I mean, you were seeing this on a lot of places in social media, online. I mean, what do you make of that?
um, well, an awful lot of it had to do with healthcare and it being the such a primal and emotional issue in America. So, I mean, the fact that it was the victim was a healthcare CEO was sort of abstracted him from actually being a person in a way. I don't think that people were cheering, oh, this guy who grew up on a farm and went to college and became a big exec got and has two kids got killed. It's a healthcare CEO got killed. And so, and then there's the online thing. But as you point out, it wasn't all online, and there are you know there are people who support him for a lot of complex reasons, whether they politically agree with it or whether they whether they believe in revolution or something, or whether they're just venting, or whether they've had personal experiences that have made them so embittered that they don't care and they want people to die. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff going on, but the part of America that isn't unreasonable or embittered, that sort of vibrated to that and said, this is great, is pretty alarming. I mean, I've had healthcare problems and I've had insurance problems, and as I write about in the book, and it's hard not to resonate with those. But then, I mean, if we're not going into an actual revolution, then I'm sort of, or we are sort of cheering for a crime and a murder. It just is a very uncomfortable thing. And you brought up Kaczynski earlier, and I mean, to me, this is like a mini version of what I call the Kaczynski moment, when you're like sort of facing Kaczynski's analysis and you're going, I don't disagree with him. You know, he seems pretty right about what he's saying about it. I mean, 20, 30 years ago, he said, With AI, we will come to a point where we don't understand how it's reasoning. And we have a choice then. We can either let it do its thing and and just accept it, or we can shut it down, and we're not shutting it down. So we don't understand AI anymore. AI has gone beyond this, and the people are warning about the possible dangers of that. So I think that uh, um, the, the message that Luigi sends is equally destabilizing, because he's saying, you know, this is all wrong, and an act of violence might change it. And if you agree with his message, then the act of violence sort of gets underneath your skin in a way. And it's like, ugh, did I just endorse an act of violence? With Kaczynski, it's more like, okay, I agree with his analysis. Yes, things are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and when things get really big, they tend to fall apart. Um, does that mean I have to do something? And I think that's the state where I'm an old guy, and I know that I'm probably not going to succeed at any revolution. But if I'm 25 and I think, well, it's all going to fall apart if somebody doesn't do something, maybe I'm the guy who has to do something. I mean, that seems sort of like what happened to me.
And to that